Yep, you read that right. I woke up feeling terrible from allergies. I could hardly hold my eyes open and decided it would be best to stay home from work, so I opened up my laptop and began writing an email to my coworkers and managers. I quickly wrote up a message and sent it off to the roughly 40 people who needed to know I wouldn't be in, closed down my laptop and went back to bed. A few hours later I checked my email to see if there were any important messages, and that's when I discovered what I had done, a very unfortunate typo. In the subject line of the email, I wrote Dick Day instead of Sick Day. I was so embarrassed I contemplated taking another sick day the day after, just to avoid facing everyone. For the next year I suffered through endless jokes from my coworkers about that time I took sick time to jack off all day. It would be pretty funny if it wasn't so humiliating. To this day, a few years later, I'm still extremely cautious double-checking the subject line on my sick day emails. TLDR, took a sick day, wrote Dick Day in the subject line of my email to dozens of co-workers, managers, and my boss. Edit, to anyone concerned that this is still keeping me up at night. Don't worry, it's not. I returned to work the next day and laughed it off. I cringe a little when I remember this, but also find it super funny and tell people about it all the time. It was completely accidental. I've just been trying to save money, so I've been eating mostly veggies, eggs, and chicken. I found out after buying a bag of sea salt and vinegar chips, and the sugar flavor was so strong it couldn't even taste the salt. They were like sweet vinegar chips. I checked and sure enough sugar was an ingredient. Now just about any food with sugar in it I taste it right away. A surprise for me was ketchup. I knew it was full sugar but I didn't realize how much, and now I can't stand how sweet it is. Fruit is mixed. Strawberries were really sweet but pineapple and kiwis weren't. I've been eating more sugar so it's not as noticeable, but I still can't eat some foods and soda is still way too much. TLDR, if you don't eat sugar for a couple weeks your sensitivity to it will increase and foods that didn't taste sweet before will be overpowering. 1 star, would not recommend. Edit, the main reason I considered it a foo is because it was accidental and forced me to dislike a lot of my previously favorite foods, and before eating anything I must now be more conscious of the sugar levels. Making me healthy was also an accidental benefit. So, a short explanation, this happened a year and a half ago. I just decided to post this now because I still think it's a pretty funny story to tell. On with the story. My parents decided to give me both of their last names. This means that I have 6 names in total, 2 first names, 4 last names. On top of that, they're uncommon last names in my country. I was never too bothered by it. It was a bit annoying at times, but a good conversation starter. In 2019, some friends and I decided to go to St. Petersburg for New Year's Eve. Russia was allowing people to visit St. Petersburg with a temporary visa that you could get online. While filling out the form for the visa, my name didn't fit the given space, so, in my innocence, I thought that taking one of my last names was okay, that it wouldn't matter. Oh, how wrong I was. On the 30th of December, we caught an overnight bus in Tallinn, Estonia, that would take us to St.P, stopping only in Narva, the border city, for a visa and passport check. 4 a.m. rolls around, the bus stops in a, sort of, military border, and we hand in our documents. When I hand in mine, the lady that received them looks at me very seriously, double-checks my papers, and grabs the, weirdly old, Soviet-styled, phone. A soldier with a tiny hat comes in, looks at me, looks at her, looks at my papers, and back at me, and also grabs the phone to call someone else. In comes another military man, whom I assume was their boss since he had a bigger hat, and does the same round of looks, me, lady, soldier, papers, me again. He tells me in the thickest Russian accent I've ever heard, "Come with me." He leads me through a door and we start walking around in what felt like a maze of office cubicles. We reach a room with a broken chair, a dirty table, and a flickering light bulb. He tells me to sit down, puts my papers on the table, grabs his phone. At this point I was scared shitless of what in the world was going to happen. He writes something on it and puts it on the table for me to see. It's Google Translate Russian English and it's spelled "Your name is wrong. You must leave." Fucking great, now I have to explain through Google Translate that my name didn't fit the online form. After almost an hour of trying to explain and argue, in very calm voices because trying to feel entitled and demanding to Russian soldiers didn't seem like a good idea. We get nowhere. They tell us that I need to do an express visa if I need to enter the country and that it would cost me 120 euros. We would need to go back to Narva and go to the consulate to do this. A soldier leads me and my friends, who were true comrades, and decided to stay back with me, away from the military station/border control. It was raining at this point, it was still dark, close to 6 a.m., and the soldier stops at the end of the border, looks at me, points at the other side of the border, and says that is Narva. Go. And so, we walk back to Narva, sleepy, soaked, and frustrated. We go through the border control on the Narva side and find some couches there, where we sit down and try to sleep for a bit. We were woken up by a very angry lady shouting at us in Russian, but we understood the message. We couldn't sleep there, we needed to go. The consulate would only open at 9 a.m., so we decided to go eat something, anywhere that was open. We found this hotel and managed to sit down and get some coffee. One of the weirdest parts of this town was that no one, and I really mean no one, could speak Estonian. One of my friends was Estonian, and we thought that that might make things easier, but none at all. It's finally 9 a.m., and we reach the consulate. Let me try and describe this place as best as I can. It felt like we were time traveling to an old USSR office. Everyone looked miserable, the walls were painted in pale beige and military green alternatively. The secretary there spoke Russian. And nothing else, again, of weird since this was a consulate and we were in Estonia. She was not understand anything that we were trying to say and trying to send us away. Finally, she managed to understand that we wanted to speak with the consul, and she told us to sit and wait. She sat at her desk and picked up the ringing phone, which was this old military green rotary phone, that actually matched the walls and the vibe of the place. After a long wait, the consul finally arrives, and I start explaining what happened. Luckily he spoke English. Initially, he's dismissive and assuming that I just made a mistake with the online form, but after explaining that I actually couldn't fit my name on the form, he asked, "Does everyone in your country have such long names?" "No sir, they do not." There was nothing he could do. I would just have to the travel agency next door and pay the 120 euros to get the express visa. We head to the travel agency and after a short but ridiculously slow line, I finally managed to talk to someone. They looked at my papers, then at me, back at the papers, and grabbed the phone to call someone. In comes a lady, she looks at me, at the papers, at the other lady, and grabs the phone. After the phone call, she goes away, and the travel agency woman looks at me and says, "Sorry, this is very complicated. It'll take a while." After 2 hours or so they call me back and the travel agency lady looks at me and very happily says, "We did it. We added a dot on one of your names and it works." At that moment, the only thing I could do was laugh, and say thank you. After that, we had to wait an absurdly long time for the visa to be printed, and at 4 p.m. that day, right before our bus left and the consulate closed, I got my visa done and paid for. We rushed to the bus, and on our way, we went. TLDR, my huge name got me stopped at the Russian border when trying to visit St. Petersburg. Had to pay 120 euros for an express visa. This story has been 23 years in the making, and both me and my mom are fucking dying. To start with some background. My older brother had a horrific reaction to multiple of his vaccines as a kid, so when I came along they decided to wait to make sure I didn't die from mine. I ended up getting all of mine in elementary school, and can confirm I am alive. However, in addition to being alive, I have some rather odd quirks. People have mostly brushed them off. Until I was diagnosed with autism earlier this year. Apparently the rest of the world is not acutely aware of having nail polish on their fingers nails 24/7. I thought you all just didn't talk about it. Enter my aunt, who has in the past 5 years or so become super conservative and anti-vax and now loves to share studies with all the research on why liberals/vaccines/gays cause autism. Previously, we'd been civil and not had major issues. However, in a brain lapse earlier today, I publicly announced my diagnosis to the world. As a comment, under one of my aunt's posts. I wasn't vaccinated, and I'm autistic. Q World War III. My aunt knows all of these facts to be true separately, but apparently putting them together broke her brain. It's not pretty. Accusations have been made, people are picking sides, okay, pretty much entire sane family versus off-her rocker aunt, and a previously quite peaceful family is now considering separate Sunday dinners. Fucking whoops. Just remember kids, sex is the #1 cause of autism. TL, Dr. My aunt believes vaccines cause autism, and I showed signs of autism before being vaccinated, so I broke my family by being a medical miracle/s. Also, if this is allowed at all, mods please let me know if it's not. I'm trying very hard not to break any rules, but I actually also have a very tiny podcast called All Fucked Up and Damp, Nowhere to Go with my friend about being autistic and ADHD on Spotify, and if anyone wants to listen to it and it doesn't sound awful, you could. Our first episode posts Friday, but you could follow us on. I can make Twitter or Ig or something. Google it and see what comes up. Or don't. That is all. Okay. Our account is at afu_ntg_podcast if anyone is interested.